Welcome back everyone, I am Dylan, this is All You Can Board, and this is a Marvel video on our channel that is not Marvel Champions. Can you believe it? We've made it. Marvel something else is finally here, and this is Marvel Dice Throne. So Dice Throne is a game in a series that you may have heard of. It's from Roxley, it's uber popular, and this is the Marvel themed version of it. And I will say this was sent as a preview copy from Roxley, so I do want to thank them for sending this copy to check out. I think it was on Kickstarter last month, if I'm not mistaken. It's off Kickstarter now. I'm actually not 100% sure if you can late pledge or late back. If you can, I'll put the link in the bio in case you're interested in that, for you to find it a little bit easier. But this is the Captain Marvel versus Black Panther set. There are 8 heroes that were in the Kickstarter, and I believe they come like in these single boxes, but you can also get it in the full kit that has all 8 heroes as well. So what is Dice Throne? Is maybe a question that you're asking, and why should you be interested in the Marvel themed version of it? Well, interestingly enough, I've never played Dice Throne before this version. This is the introduction to me for Dice Throne. After it's been out for so long, been so popular, I've been curious about it. I've heard, oh, Dice Throne Season 2s, all this stuff, and I just haven't really had an opportunity to look into it. This is my first foray into it, so I'm going to tell you everything about Dice Throne, about this Marvel version, and then my overall thoughts on it in case you're looking to pick this up, or hopefully to help you make your decision if you're thinking about it. So, first things first. What is Dice Throne? The easiest way I can describe this, if you're unfamiliar, is that Dice Throne is like Yahtzee taken to the next level, Yahtzee to the extreme. So if you're unfamiliar with Yahtzee, I'll give you a quick overview of how it plays in here. Basically, you're gonna have a set amount of dice, you're rolling them, and you're trying to get a certain combination of symbols, and each one will do different things. So in Yahtzee, you had a checklist, and you're essentially trying to hit all the things. You want to get a small straight, a large straight, a full house, over the course of the game until you basically bust on what your roll is, and then you see how many points everyone got based on how many things that they were able to grab. This is a little bit different in the sense that you're not trying to collect like these things like, oh, I've collected my small straight or whatever. Every time you roll one of these combinations, you're able to use abilities on your character board to attack your opponent. Each person has 50 health, and you're basically trying to get them down to 0. So as you can imagine with Marvel themed, Captain Marvel, Black Panther, they all have their own very unique ability sets, and you're basically rolling dice, and you have 3 rolls max you can do to try to make different combinations and use these abilities. There's another twist in it in that there's also a deck of cards. So you're going to be drawing cards and being able to play cards with your combat points every single turn, based on how many combat points you have and what cards are in your hand. Some of these could be upgrades to abilities that are on your board, so you can get more powerful versions of these things where maybe they require less dice on the roll or do more damage. Other ones will just be straight up ways to manipulate dice or to manipulate status effect tokens on either player's board. There's a whole bunch of different ones for each character. They're different for each character. That's what makes Dice Throne so interesting. So basically that's in a nutshell how the gameplay is. Dice Throne basically functions in that every time you buy a box, you're getting 2 characters in it that you can use to fight against each other. But now the characters that you get can also fight against other characters that you happen to get from Dice Throne down the road. So even though this is the Marvel themed version, you can use the Captain Marvel or Black Panther to fight one of the other Dice Throne characters that you may have acquired previously or that you'll acquire in the future. So you can expand it at your leisure, sort of in the same way that you can expand Marvel Champions. You can buy Marvel Champions and have everything you need to play, and then at some point you might say, I want the Captain America hero pack, or I want the Ant-Man hero pack, and you can expand it and get a new hero with new abilities. That's essentially how it works here. Everything you need would be in one of these small affordable boxes, but if all of a sudden you've grown tired of those 2 or you want some more variety, you can go get some more heroes, get some more packages to expand your game. That's what I think makes Dice Throne so attractive to so many people, is that it's low barrier to entry, easy gameplay that you can expand, and every time you get bored of it, say, oh, I'm going to add more characters with new abilities, find out which ones are my personal most favorites, for instance. So that's Dice Throne. What is Marvel Dice Throne? How is Marvel Dice Throne different? In a nutshell, it's not. It uses the exact same system as Dice Throne. In fact, the rulebook that comes in this version that I played doesn't even have the Marvel characters in the rulebook. It has I think it's the original rulebook that was from like the original season 1 of Dice Throne or season 2 or whatever the case may be. It has other, like a gunslinger character it's using as an example. So the rule, if you're familiar with Dice Throne, there are no new rules you need to learn except for the special rules that might be on each of the heroes you play. So Captain Marvel and Black Panther will obviously play different than other heroes you may have played. That's all you're really learning. The gameplay rules are the exact same. So the reason that I think it's good that they're doing a Marvel Dice Throne is I love Marvel, but I had never checked out Dice Throne, and Marvel being integrated into it was the thing that made me say, okay, I'm going to take this plunge. I'm going to try out Dice Throne for myself because I can really find myself tied to the theme here. And sometimes that's all it takes. You know, there's a lot of discussion on theme versus mechanics sometimes. And actually, there's a great channel on YouTube, if you haven't watched them, called Thinker Themer, where they approach it from both sides of the spectrum. And I think what's interesting here is that it was the theme that brought me into Dice Throne finally. I was always interested. I was always intrigued, but I didn't want to take the plunge until Marvel was attached to it, because now I can have more of an attachment to the characters and see, oh, it's interesting how they did this ability. Like, this is how it plays in the comics or in the movies, and here's how they integrate it into dice rolls and cards. That to me is really interesting, and to think and see which other heroes are they going to introduce. How are they going to introduce them? Are they going to bring this ability into play? How are they going to introduce Thor's hammer and things like that? So that to me is really exciting, but that's really the only change with Marvel. So if you're not into Marvel as a theme, I don't think that Marvel Dice Throne's for you. At that point, if you're interested in Dice Throne, I would go a different direction and try one of the other already released packs of Dice Throne and get into it that way. If you're into Dice Throne and you love Marvel, perfect a place to go as your next foray into Dice Throne is the Marvel version. And if you're not into Dice Throne but you've always been curious, or you just didn't know what it was, but you love Marvel, maybe like me, this is your first introduction. So I think for a lot of people, this is going to be sort of their way to jump into Dice Throne as a whole because Marvel's attachment. But there are other heroes, like I said, that were on the Kickstarter campaign. So I have them written down here because otherwise I would have forgot. But there was Doctor Strange, Scarlet Witch, Spider-Man, the Miles Morales version, Loki, Thor, and then Black Panther and Captain Marvel. So lots of variety. These are the only 2 heroes I've checked out, but obviously there's 6 other ones with their own unique boards and abilities and cards and everything to check out. So lots of cool stuff to explore if you're digging the theme and the attachment with all the other heroes that are in the game. Okay, so I'm going to break this up. What did I think of the Dice Throne system? Again, I told you this is my first foray into Dice Throne, so I want to talk about Dice Throne as a whole and what I thought of it. So first thing to note, it is fun, it is addictive, and it's fast. You can learn this game super quickly. You can get into it super quickly. The games don't have to take very long. Your first one might take longer because you're learning the mechanics and stuff, but generally it is just very, very accessible. And I think that that's what makes Dice Throne so successful, is the fact that any age range can play it, and you don't have to learn a whole lot of rules to get into it and play successfully. But then, of course, the flip side of that is one of the reasons you don't is because a lot of it does rely on luck. And for some people, luck is a make or break. They want their games to be more rooted in strategy and rewarding you for good plays. I would say that this is way more leaning to the luck side. You have not only the dice, which obviously every time you roll the dice, you have some mitigation being able to have 3 rolls to potentially, make up for some bad rolls. But generally, you're just going to have tons of moments where you're like, well, I just didn't roll what I needed. And that's no fault of my own. That's just how the dice happen to roll. So lots of luck involved there. Also on the cards, you're not going to see your entire deck of cards in a game. In fact, most of the games, I don't think I saw half my deck of cards. So if you just happen to have all your good cards in the bottom half of the deck, you might have a game where it's, I just drew really, really bad. And that's what I'm attributing this loss to. Again, because a game like this is fast, you can easily play another session. You can do best of 3. You can mitigate some of that luck that way. But I would just say in one standalone game, there is a lot of luck. But again, the trade-off being that it's just super easy to get into, no big rules overhead, and it's addictive, and just in the same way Yahtzee is. It's just something you can sit back and relax and play. You can sit in the morning and play. It's almost like that cabin vibe type of game. You're sitting with your coffee and you're just rolling dice and you're having a quick little battle with these characters that are thematically really interesting to you. So I think that is really, really interesting about the Dice Throne system, but it's not going to be for everyone because strategy, I think, takes a back seat. There's some strategy, but a lot of it is just going to be when you draw your good cards, you're going to play them, and when you roll your good dice, you're going to do a lot of damage. So it's going to sort of see how things fall. There's some strategy in terms of how you use your status tokens and some of the abilities and when you use them, but a lot is going to come down to that luck, which I was okay with as a sort of a pastime. But if you're someone with a smaller collection and this is going to be one of your main games and you're someone who loves strategy, you're probably not going to get as fulfilled by this as some other games that are on your shelf. Another thing I found that came up a few times is that there's lots of times I would roll the dice and say, okay, what is it that I want to do here? Because you have multiple abilities that do damage. Sometimes you have multiple abilities to get you the same status tokens you want, and sometimes you can use multiple ones based on your roll. You can go for multiple things. You can say, I'm gonna keep these 3 and roll these again, but you can do that in multiple different ways. And so often you're just like, well, it's 2 of one of another. Like, do I want to do 7 damage with this, or I want to do 5 damage with this and get a status token? Like, what do I want to go for? And really, you think about it for a while and go, it kind of doesn't matter. Like I need to do damage, both do damage, and either way I'm down to a luck roll. So it's either I go for this one and I roll and see if I get it, or I go for this one and I roll and see if I get it. Either way I'm doing 6 damage or 7, right? So sometimes you get those decisions where you start to realize this isn't even that much of an interesting decision. It's just what, I guess I'm just going to roll again and see what happens. That seemed to happen a lot, but again, it's a minor complaint. It's just something I guess caught me off guard because I haven't played a lot of these like Yahtzee-esque type games. I played a lot of roll and writes, but this doesn't at all feel like a roll and write in terms of the way the dice function. It's Yahtzee without the roll and write element is the best way to explain it. So that took a little bit of getting used to, but once I got over that hurdle and I ignored the fact that, hey, I'm not approaching this game to have a super deep strategy or, you know, these really fulfilling turns where I say, oh my God, I outplayed my opponent. I was able to just sort of sit back and enjoy the experience. And I think that that's where you're going to have most of your enjoyment from Dice Throne. So in terms of Marvel's integration, I'm a huge Marvel fan, obviously not just with Marvel Champions, Marvel in general, with the movies and everything. I'm super into a diehard fan now. I didn't grow up with the comics as much. I read some of them, like Spider-Man specifically, but as an adult, I've just grown super fond of Marvel. The Marvel theme in here is done super well. It's done in a similar way as Marvel Champions, where I find it super interesting to say, okay, I know things about a character and how they work in the movies or the comics. How do they integrate that into this game? So Black Panther is a great example of that. So Black Panther has his vibranium suit, which every time he gets hit, he's soaking up the damage that he's taking, and then he unleashes all that back at his enemies. And that is represented by these vibranium tokens, I think, or vibranium... I can't remember what the name of the token is now, but you get a set of 8 tokens, and essentially you're slowly accumulating them onto yourself, and the more you have, the more you're going to unleash afterwards. So every time a Black Panther takes a hit, whether it's 1 damage, whether it's 6, whatever, he's getting a token added on. So if you're playing an opponent who wants to do some little hits here and there, which for instance Captain Marvel sometimes does, the suit is constantly building up and then it's going to unleash, which makes it something your opponent has to work around, and it's fun for you to be able to build this up. So I like how they integrate the Marvel characters. That to me is the most interesting thing. After having played these two, I immediately thought, okay, I really want to play Thor and see how they integrated the hammer. I really want to play Spider-Man and how they integrated the flexibility and the agility. Sometimes I just can't think of the words, and I sit here going, how many times am I going to stutter before I cut the camera and try again? And sometimes I just play right through it. The agility of Spider-Man and how he's flipping all over the place. Like, how did they capture that in that character? Loki with his trickster mechanics, like how is that captured? I'm so curious how to dive into those characters and see how they're captured in the Dice Throne format, because I know that was the most interesting aspect of Marvel Champions for me, is saying, how are they going to take this character and the thematics that I know and love and turn it into something that makes sense in this card game? So to me, that's the most interesting thing about Marvel's integration here, is that with unique original characters, it's still interesting to see how they tie the theme in, but you're not coming in with a preconceived notion saying, oh, I know this character has these kind of things, how do they integrate it? It's more of a fresh slate. So I feel like a little bit less compelling for me than going, okay, this character normally has these type of abilities and this type of, personality. How are they going to have that come out in this game? I love how they did it so far with these two heroes, and I love that that's something I can look forward to in Marvel Dice Throne. So overall, what are my overall thoughts of Marvel Dice Throne if I was reviewing this product based on, again, just Captain Marvel versus Black Panther? It's the only one I got to take a look at. I think that Dice Throne as a product, I see the appeal now. I totally get it. It's something that I'm not myself going to go out and now buy every single character pack, but I would really be interested in getting either the entire Marvel line or another 1 or 2 packs to be able to have them on my shelf, because one, when I have younger audiences over, Dice Throne I think is going to be a really, really easy game to teach, or if I have someone over that loves Marvel and wants to play a game, feels like, hey, I love to play a game, what do you suggest? But I don't want to learn a lot of rules, or I don't want to learn anything new. This is something I can teach so quickly, and it doesn't require tons even after the teach is done. You're just rolling dice and applying them, and so it's fun, it's quick, and it's an easy learn. And having games like that in your collection, in my opinion, is super important because you never know when you're going to need them. And I feel like Dice Throne is now one I'm going to want to have a couple copies of on my shelf. Maybe I'll have a couple Marvel ones for the people who I know are into the superhero genre. Maybe I'll get a couple that are less tied to the superhero genre to be also able to say, oh, if that's Marvel's not your thing, there's these ones and we can try it this way. So I totally get the appeal. It will not be for everybody. Don't think that just because it's popular and just because now Marvel's attached that it's something you should absolutely get into. You need to ask yourself, how important is strategy to you, and how important is that feeling of I just outplayed my opponent, I just came up with an amazing play. It's never going to feel like you crafted a play in Dice Throne. It's going to feel like you drew the card you needed and you either did or didn't have combat points to play it, or it's going to feel like, are the dice going to fall where I want them to? So if you can get over that hurdle, if you are looking for a game that sometimes you want to play without having to like do too much thinking or have it be a little bit more mindless fun, Dice Throne is such a great option. And again, if you're a huge Marvel fan, that's just an added bonus now. But that's my biggest recommendation, biggest takeaway is ask yourself that question. How important is that to you? And then decide where you want to go from there. The last thing I'll mention though is if you do decide to go with Dice Throne any level, whether it's Marvel, whether it's the originals, the seasons, getting one of these packs is such an affordable thing to do. It's not going to cost you a whole lot. You get 2 characters, so it's also something that if you just wanted to try it out and see if it's for you, you're not having to think and say, ooh, am I going to drop $60 on something that I don't know if I'm going to like? You know, even the Marvel Champions core set is pretty expensive to test out and see if it's something you want to get into. Dice Throne is not. It's super accessible. You can grab one pack, see if it's for you, and if all of a sudden it turns out it's not, you're not going to feel super bad that you dropped a lot of money. So those are my thoughts on Marvel Dice Throne and Dice Throne as a whole. I'm excited that I finally have played Dice Throne. I can understand what people are talking about, and I really, really, truly am excited to try more of these Marvel heroes. As soon as they come out, I'm going to definitely get some for myself and see how the themes are integrated and see how they compare to these two, and especially against Captain Marvel and Black Panther. I've only played these two against each other. I'm excited to give that a little bit more variety, a little bit more options. So that is my review of Marvel Dice Throne. Let me know in the comments what you think of Dice Throne in general. Have you played the other versions? What is your takeaway? Do you still play them? Why or why not? I would just love to hear from the Dice Throne crowd and why you find it something that you always want to come back to, or why it's something that you're like, oh, that is not for me. Let me know if there's anything I haven't considered, because now I've entered this world. I'm curious what everyone else has to say. And if you're a Marvel Champions fan who watched this video because you thought there's another Marvel video, let me know what you think. Is this something that you're like, this is like, if I want, like, why would I do this? Marvel Champions does it 10 times better with the thematics. Or, hey, you know, I do want to change. I wanted to play some of these heroes in a different way, and I like dice. I don't know. Let me know in the comments. I'm just always curious and love hearing from you guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. If I do get my hands on other Marvel Champions, even I'm doing it, Marvel Dice Throne packs in the future, I'll absolutely do a video where I maybe feature a bunch of the heroes and give a breakdown of what they all are and how they differ. Maybe I'll rank my favorite heroes at that point. But for now, this is all I got. So thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time.